Welcome to the Sagebrush Trail. Stories of the West, from the frontier to the Yukon. I'm Mardell, reading Delilah of the Snows by Harold Winlon. Chapter 7. Hetty Bears the Cost. It was towards the end of the arduous day, and Ingleby was glad of the respite the breakage of a chain cargo sling afforded him. The white side of a big Empress liner towered above the open-fronted shed, and a string of boxcars stood waiting outside the sliding doors behind him. A swarm of men in blue jean were hurrying across the wharf behind clattering trucks laden with the produce of China and Japan, for the liner had been delayed a trifle by bad weather, and the tea and silk and sugar were wanted in the east. Already a great freight locomotive was waiting on the sidetrack, and as Ingleby knew, the long train must be got away before the Atlantic Express went out that evening. He had been promoted to a post of subordinate authority a few weeks earlier, and both he and Ledger were, in the meanwhile, at least contented with their lot, for the great railway company treated its servants liberally. There was, however, nothing that he could do for a minute or two, and he leaned against a tier of silk bales with a bundle of dispatch labels and a slip of paper in his hand, while Ledger sat upon the trunk behind him. He had, though it was no longer exactly his business, been carrying sugar bags upon his back most of that afternoon, partly to lessen the labor of Ledger, who had not his physique, and now the white crystals glittered in his hair and clung, smeared with dust, to his perspiring face. His sleeves were rolled back to the elbow, showing his brown arms, which had grown hard and corded since he had come to Canada, while his coarse blue shirt, which was open at the neck and belted tight at the waist, displayed as more conventional attire would not have done the symmetry of a well-set-up figure. "We are still short of a few tea chests," said Ledger. "However, if you would mark the 2 lots I've got yonder, we could clear that car for dispatch as soon as the rest come out." Ingleby glanced at his slip. "I'll wait till I get the others. It will keep the thing straighter. There's a good deal more in sorting cargo than I fancied there could be until I tried it, and it's remarkably easy to put the stuff into the wrong car." "Then it might be well to keep your eye on those chests of tea. I can't keep the boys off them. There's another fellow at them now." Ingleby swung round and signed to a perspiring man who stopped with a truck beside the cases in question. "Leave that lot alone. It's billed straight through Express Freight East," he said. "Stick this ticket on the cases, Tom." Ledger moved away, and Ingleby was endeavoring to scrape some of the sugar off his person, when a man whom he recognized as one of the leading citizens of Vancouver and several ladies came down the steamer's gangway. Then he started and felt his heart throb as his glance rested on one of them, who, as it happened, looked up just then. It was evident that she saw him, and he was unpleasantly sensible that his face was growing hot. There was, he would have admitted at any other time, no reason for this, but in the meanwhile it was distinctly disconcerting that Grace Colthurst should come upon him in his present guise, smeared with dust and half-melted sugar. Then he occupied himself with his cargo slip, for it was in the circumstances scarcely to be expected that she would vouchsafe him any recognition. The longing to see her again, however, became too strong for him, and looking up a moment, he was conscious of a blissful astonishment, for she was walking straight towards him, with a smile in her eyes. She seemed to him almost ethereally dainty in the dust and turmoil of the big cargo shed, and for the moment he forgot his uncovered arms and neck, and felt every nerve in him thrill as he took the little gloved hand she held out. What she had done was not likely to be regarded as anything very unusual in that country, where most men are liable to startling vicissitudes of fortune, and there are no very rigid social distinctions. But Ingleby failed to recognize this just then, and it was not astonishing that he should idealize her for her courage. You are about the last person I expected to meet. What are you doing here? She said with a little tranquil smile that became her so well. Ingleby's heart was throbbing a good deal faster than usual, but he held himself in hand. Miss Colthurst was apparently pleased to see him, but there was an indefinite something in her serene graciousness which put a check on him. It was, he felt, perhaps only because she was patrician to her fingertips that she had so frankly greeted him. A girl with less natural distinction could, he fancied, scarcely have afforded to be equally gracious to a wharf laborer. I am at present loading railway cars with tea and silk, though I have been carrying sugar bags most of the day, he said. Grace showed no sign of astonishment as she glanced at his toiling comrades, and though this was doubtless the correct attitude for her to assume, Ingleby was, in spite of his opinions, not exactly pleased until she spoke again. "Don't you find it rather hard work?" she said. "Of course, one cannot always choose the occupation one likes here, but couldn't you find something that would be a little more profitable?" Ingleby laughed. "I'm afraid I can't," he said. "In this city, the one passport to advancement appears to be the ability to play in the band, and I was, unfortunately, never particularly musical. Still, there is no reason why I should trouble you with my affairs. I wonder if I might venture to ask how you came to be here?" "It is quite simple. Major Colthurst was appointed gold commissioner in one of the mining districts, and I came out with him, but he has been sent to an especially desolate post in the northern ranges, and I am staying with friends in the city for a week or two. Then I'm going to join him." She stopped a moment and then looked at him reflectively. "Why don't you go north and try your fortune at prospecting, too? They have been finding a good deal of gold lately in the Green River country where my father is." It had seemed to Ingleby almost unnatural that he should be so quietly discussing his affairs with the girl he had last seen nearly 6,000 miles away. This was not the kind of meeting he would have anticipated, but as she made the suggestion, a little thrill once more ran through him, for he had heard that the district in question was a great desolation, and it almost seemed that she desired his company. However, he shook off the notion as untenable. There would be, he knew, a distinction between a placer miner and the gold commissioner's daughter, even in that land of rock and snow. "I have thought of it," he said. "Some day I may go, but it is at the far end of the province, and for one who works on a steamboat wharf, the getting there is a risky venture. I don't suppose everybody finds gold." "I'm afraid they don't, and the cost of transporting provisions is a serious matter to those who fail. In fact, some of them have been giving my father trouble. They appear to lay the blame of everything on the mining regulations." She stopped and glanced at him with a little smile. "From what I remember of your views, you would no doubt be inclined to agree with them." Ingleby laughed, though it was pleasant to be told that she remembered anything he had said. "I really fancy I have learned a little sense in Canada, and I am not going to inflict my crude notions upon you again. Still, there is a question I should like to ask. Did Mr. Esmond of Holtcar recover?" Grace noticed the sudden intentness of his tone and looked at him curiously. "Of course. In fact, he got better in a week or two, and I think he behaved very generously. The police could not induce him to give them any information about the men who injured him." Ingleby started, and the girl saw the relief in his face. "I wonder," he said, "if you ever heard who they were supposed to be?" Grace turned a trifle and gazed at him steadily. though there was now a little flash in her eyes. You, she said with incisive coldness, were one of them. Ingleby grew hot under her gaze, for he felt that all the pride and prejudices of her station were arrayed against him. You will remember the form of my question. I was supposed to be one of them, but that was all, he said. Grace's face softened, and she glanced at her companions, who, after waiting a little while, were just leaving the shed. Of course, she said. I should have known it was absurd to fancy that you could do anything of that kind. I am afraid I have kept you, said Ingleby. Perhaps I should not have abused your kindness by letting you stop at all, but the desire to see you was too strong for me. I wonder whether even you would have dared to do as much had it been in England. There was a faint flush in the girl's cheek, but she smiled as she held out her hand. I scarcely think we need to go into that, and I can't keep the others waiting any longer, she said. Perhaps I shall meet you in the Green River country. She swept away with a soft swish of dainty garments, and Ingleby, whose face grew curiously intent as he watched her, climbed the slanting gangway to the deck of the liner when she disappeared. From there he could see the white tops of the ranges gleaming ethereally as they stretched back mountain behind mountain towards the lonely north. The Green River country lay far beyond them, and there were leagues of tangled forest and thundering rivers to be crossed. But that day the untrodden snow he gazed upon seemed to beckon him, and a sudden longing to set out upon the long trail grew almost irresistible. There was gold in the wilderness, and with enough of it, a man might aspire to anything, even the hand of a crown commissioner's daughter. Then the winch beside him clattered, and he shook off the fancies as a fresh stream of bales and cases slid down the gangway. Whatever the future might have in store, there were several more hours of arduous work in front of him then. One of them had passed when Ledger came hastily up to him. I suppose you got those last few cases? He said. Ingleby started. I'm afraid I never remembered them until this moment. Have they pulled the car out, Tom? It's not there anyway. I fancied you had made the lot up. Somebody has put those cases in. While they looked at one another, the tolling of a locomotive bell broke through the clatter of the trucks, and Ingleby sped towards the door of the shed, with Ledger close behind him. When they reached it, the hoot of a whistle came ringing down the track, and they saw the great locomotive vanish amidst the piles of lumber outside a big sawmill, with the long cars lurching through the smoke behind it. Ingleby said nothing then, but turned back into the shed with his lips set, and questioned several men before he looked at Ledger. Nobody seems to know whether they put that tea into the through east car or not. And it's no use being sorry now we didn't see it done, he said. The sooner we have a word with the freight traffic agent, the better. The gentleman in question had, however, very little consolation to offer them. The fast freight has gone to make Kamloops ahead of the Atlantic Express, he said. She's not going to be held up more than 10 minutes there, and they'll have the mountain loco ready to rush her up the loops and over the Selkirks. I'll send a wire along, but so long as the road is clear, it's going to be more than any man's place is worth to sidetrack that train for freight checking. Ingleby's face grew anxious. Well, he said, what is to be done? Nothing, said the traffic manager. If there's anything wrong with your sorting, you'll probably hear about it in a week or so. They went out of the office, and Ingleby turned to his comrade. I'm afraid we'll be adrift again before very long, and while I wish you had seen nobody move those cases, it's my fault, he said. There's another thing I must mention so that you may realize all you owe me. That was Miss Colthurst of Holtcar to whom I was talking, though of course I should have been attending to my business instead, and from what she told me, it seems that I needn't have brought you and Hetty out here at all. Esmond got better rapidly, and could not even be induced to prosecute. Ledger smiled. "Well," he said, "I'm uncommonly glad to hear it, and in regard to the other question, neither of us has any intention of blaming you. So far we've been a good deal better off than we probably should ever have been in England." Nothing further was said about the affair, though both of them devoted more than a little anxious thought to it, until one morning they were summoned before the head wharfinger. "They're raising Cain in the office about a consignment of tea billed through urgent to the east that's gone down the Sioux line into the States," he said. "I guess I've no more use for either of you." "I can't grumble," said Ingleby, who had almost expected this. "Still, I should like to point out that only one of us is responsible." "No," said Ledger, "as a matter of fact, there were two, and if there hadn't been, it would have come to the same thing anyway." The wharfinger nodded. "Well," he said, "I'd keep you if I could, but after the circus that's going on about the thing, it's out of the question. I guess I'd try the Green River diggings if I were you." They went out together, and when Ingleby was about to speak, Ledger checked him with a gesture. "I think I know what you mean to say, but there's another question to consider," he said. "Trade is slack in the city just now, and taking it all around, I fancy that man's advice is good. If we can induce Hetty to stay here, we'll try the new mining country." In different circumstances, Ingleby would have been exultant at the prospect, but as it was, he recognized his responsibility. It was, however, late that evening before they were able to lay the state of affairs before Hetty, and Ingleby was almost astonished at the quietness with which she listened. "Well," she said, "there's no use worrying about it now. All you have to do is try the mines. The man who came down with the gold yesterday said they were offering $5 and $6 to anybody who would work on some of the claims." "But you don't seem to realize that we should have to leave you behind," said Ledger. Hetty laughed and flashed a covert gaze at Ingleby. "No," she said. "I'm coming with you." The two men looked at each other, and Ledger protested. "Hetty," he said, "it's out of the question. You couldn't face the snow and frost, and I don't even know how we could get you there. There are forests one can scarcely drag a pack horse through, as well as rivers one has to swim them across. And we should probably have to spend several weeks on the trail. In fact, it seems to be an appalling country to get through." "Go on," said Hetty dryly. "Isn't there anything else?" "There are certainly mosquitoes that almost eat you alive. You know you never could stand mosquitoes." "Are they quite as big as bluebottles?" said Hetty. Ledger made a little gesture and glanced at Ingleby as if to ask for support. But though Hetty's brows were assuming a portentous straightness, she smiled again. "Walter was anxious to leave me behind once before, so you needn't look at him," she said. "In fact, there's not the least use in talking. I'm coming." Ingleby said nothing. He did not wish to hurt the girl, though he fancied he knew how hard she would find the life they must lead and the great desolation into which they were about to venture. That Grace Colthurst was going there did not affect the question, for there could be no comparison between the lot of a prospector's sister and that of the daughter of the gold commissioner. Then he saw that Hetty was watching him. "Of course you don't want me, Walter," she said. Ingleby felt his face grow hot. "Hetty," he said simply, "you ought to know that isn't so. If you must come, we shall be glad to have you, and if you find the life a hard one, you must try to forgive me. If I had known what I was doing, I might have spared you this." They had decided it all in half an hour, but Ingleby frowned when he and his comrade were left alone. "The whole thing hurts me horribly, Tom," he said. "Of course, we can worry along and may do well, but you've read what the country is like. And Hetty—" Ledger appeared unusually grave. "It is," he said, "certainly a little rough on Hetty. She, at least, was not to blame, but she will have to face the results all the same. and whatever we have to put up with will be twice as hard on her." Ingleby said nothing, for he realized his responsibility. In compensation for the few minutes he had spent with Grace Colthurst, Hetty Ledger must drag out months of privation and peril. Join me next time on the Sagebrush Trail for more exciting Western adventure in Delilah of the Snows by Harold Binloss.